following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Middays with Jocelyn Davis. I am Jocelyn, your host, and today we have as my guest is Bob Clegg, and he is running for Executive Council, and that is District 5.
Correct.
I got it right. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but with how many interviews I do and people I talk to, it's now getting to the point where I'm lucky I remembered your surname, let alone your first name. So welcome to Middays with Jocelyn. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that the TV station has opened up and we can do face-to-face interviews. The producer, he just kept saying, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? And I'm like, I don't Skype. And it's not that I don't, I just, in watching everybody Skype, and the talking over each other made me crazy. I mean, it really did. I was like, and I did it last week with one person, and it was frustrating. So I'm going to try and keep my guests live. I mean, isn't that what it's supposed to be?
That's what it's supposed to be. I'd rather look somebody in the eye anyways when I'm talking to them. It's too easy to not be
engaged
or truthful.
Exactly. So I know everybody understands about politics, or some of us do, but let's break it right down, go from the bottom. Why are you running for Executive Council? What is Executive Council? Why is it important?
I'm running for Executive Council because I was a state rep for 8 years, and I was a senator for 6 years, and my reputation was corruption and bad policy was something that I wasn't afraid to take on. I don't care who it was that was profiting, it just wasn't right. Mm-hmm. So I heard from some people in the State House that things had gotten pretty bad with the Executive Council and that they were doing no-bid sole source contracts for a lot of money. So basically, we were spending more money than we should have, and I'm going to say that because we weren't checking to see if somebody else could do it better for less.
Right.
So I decided to run for the Executive Council. Now, the Executive Council we're unique in the United States, but basically our job as Executive Councilors is to advise the governor and consent to certain things. So we're there to help him. We should be reading every single contract that comes through. Mm-hmm. And then when we have the council meeting, we should be saying, Governor, this is a good contract, or no, this isn't a very good contract. We need to find out who negotiated this and start asking, maybe they're not qualified to be there. There was one the other day that a 10-year real estate contract.
I was just going to say, is that the 10-year contract that's just been out all over Facebook and in the news? So I don't know a lot, so I'll ask the dumb questions because I don't care. It seems to me that a 10-year contract seems excessively long. It seems to me that there's still a problem with just one person bidding. I don't understand that. Just in itself, me as a regular person, why would you not invite 3 people, 5 people, even 2 people to bid on something?
Well, the problem I have is that
what is that?
Somebody's incompetence, and this is typically what it is, their incompetence means that they wait till the last minute, and now we're stuck, we don't have a choice. So I don't blame the building owner, but I worked for a very large real estate company for many years. We had a lot of buildings occupied by the state of New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. And the contracts were always in 3-year intervals, once in a while in 5, with the right to renew. Okay. And then it was, you would talk about the money. Usually it would be an increase in taxes or whatever, but you had that right. You didn't just outright say, we're going to stay for 10 years, it's $3.7 million, and then let the landlord walk away. That's not how it's done. What happens is, in many of the buildings that we had with government, one was loaded with lawyers. And one day somebody said, you know what? These lawyers cost us more than if we hired this out. So they wiped out the entire branch of lawyers and had an empty building, which they gave back to us. Now, if they'd had a 10-year lease, I'd still be collecting money on it. And that's not what we want to do.
Right.
So then what happens is if the group that's going in there is no longer necessary, or we find a better way to do what they're doing, we have to move somebody else in there, so at least it's not an unoccupied state building.
Of which it would cost the taxpayer?
It's costing the taxpayer now. From what I understand, they did a 10-year, and I don't know how they can do it. It's not, somebody wasn't competent enough to understand real estate. That's my opinion. Now, I know they asked somebody what they thought, and that person said, oh, geez, it was a good deal. I think they did a great deal in negotiating. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's in the business said, please, come here, I want to negotiate with them.
Right.
It was ridiculous. But the executive council challenged it, but nobody there really could understand. Nobody understood real estate market
Enough to be able to push back hard.
Right. So
it's so, wow, that's very frustrating, but it seems par for the course with the way our world is right now, with the way our state is. And it seems so, for instance, I don't want to go national, but I'm going to go there. So we look at President Trump, who comes along as a businessman. Mm-hmm. And like him or love him, like him or hate him, he is a businessman first.
Right.
And he built businesses, buildings, whatever, worldwide. And it doesn't matter whether his dad gave him $100 or $100 million, he could either lose it all or parlay it all.
Right.
He parlayed it into a massive, massive business worldwide.
Right.
He dealt with leaders. He dealt with ambassadors, you name it, in order to build these hotels, build whatever he was doing. And it doesn't matter how he started, it's that he's done it. He comes to Washington at a time where all we have are a bunch of, not all lawyers, but a lot of shysters. And we have a lot of politicians that, quite frankly, do not represent we the people, do not want to represent us,
right,
pretend to represent us, and meanwhile, they got their hand out, like this, taking money, shoving it in the pocket, and meanwhile, patting us on the shoulder, going, "It's okay, we love you." And we're looking at it in our own state,
right,
up front and personal.
Right.
People say, "Well, you're not shocked." So
it's no different. They're doing the last 10 years. They've done the exact same thing, and every year they get worse. I listen to my opponents say, "Oh, well, of course I vote with Valinsky and Pappas because we're buying sand and salt." Well, when you're buying sand and salt on a sole source because, well, the guy did a good job last year, well, how do you know that they're giving you the best deal on sand and salt?
If you don't entertain another offer.
And it's your duty. When you're spending my money,
Mm-hmm.
it's your duty to go out and get the best. When you're spending your money, I don't care if you hire the worst guy in the world for the most money. That's your money. But it's not your money on the council. It's
Correct.
my money and your money.
It's so interesting because earlier when I did another show, somehow everything I talked about just kept coming back to taxpayer money, money, which it does ultimately. And what people need to understand, pure and simple, is are your tax dollars being spent appropriately, legally, and constitutionally? Right. And that's within a state. That's within a town, that's within a school budget, that's within the United States of America. It's no different, right?
Right. I'm not sure about this year, but in the previous session, when my opponent was of the council, they had every Tuesday, they called Tote Bag Tuesday. It was called Tote Bag Tuesday because the state police would take a tote bag mm-hmm. with all the information that the councilors were supposed to use and drop it off at the Secretary of State's office. Now, the question was, did anybody that was a counselor then come and get their bags and read that 5,000 pages that night? Or were they just coming on Wednesday, getting their tote bag full of stuff,
and showing up,
and just going, "Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, sure." And I'll tell you, I think, with the exception of Ted Gatzis, I know gets his, but it appears that what they did 2 years ago when my opponent was there and what they're doing now is pretty similar because people don't seem to have any idea. Oh, well, somebody called me and said something. Well, what does it say? Did you look at it? And, I know Ted Gatzis can't fight everything himself.
Right. That's a
He
heavy
tries.
load.
I listen. He tries, but 4-1's a tough day.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. So we're seeing things being bought. When you spend money to study ducks in Canada, well,
Wait. We're spending taxpayer dollars to study ducks in Canada?
mating habits of rabbits. We're giving money
In New Hampshire?
We're giving money to Massachusetts colleges to do stuff. It's absolutely.
Now, didn't I just see a $65,000 to Colorado?
Well, but that wasn't government. That's the New Hampshire GOP. And
Oh, okay.
my joke on that was, I guess the dispensaries in Massachusetts and New Hampshire were closed.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I get it, because Colorado. Wow.
But
wait a minute. So let's back up the crazy train here. And I know you can't, but please give us a reason, a shred of insanity. Why would that occur at all?
When you like being part of government so much that you're willing to do whatever to stay, and that's what we have in Washington. That's what we have in our revolving door, especially in District 5. The same two people just keep swapping the seat, and the votes are the same. So when somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I got a 10-year contract, and it's for our buddy."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, nobody's going to know, right? Listen, right now I'm one of the most hated people up there. I hear the rumors that, he can't get up here. He's going to be such a pain. He's going to scrutinize everything. Yeah, I am.
But isn't that your job? And again, like you said, taxpayer money is what it comes down to when all is said and done.
When I first got up there in the House, I joined the state representatives because I asked somebody to help me out, and they said, "If you think you'd do a better job, run." So I did. And when I got up there, I listened to people. I remember when the Department of Labor said to me, "Oh, well, there's only 2 elevator companies in the state." And I said, "That's a lie." I'd get gavelled a lot because coming from the construction industry, I didn't have that nicety that I guess politicians are supposed to say. I just said it. I'm blunt, and that's me. I told a lawyer one time that was considered a constitutional lawyer, and everybody loved him, and he sat there and lied, and I said he lied, and I got thrown out of the room. And I said, "Before I get thrown out, here's the paper he signed. I know he's lying. Now what do you got to say?" So I didn't have a problem doing it, but they don't like it. Did you know that right now, because we're a little low on money?
Oh, a little?
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder why.
So they're going to make the people they're going to make the people suffer that are at home. They've decided now to limit the amount of oxygen you can have if you're one of those people that are home and you need oxygen. Oh, I'm not kidding.
What?
So,
Oh, God, just
okay,
ducks
but
and
this
rabbits, and now
this is
limiting
the stuff
oxygen?
you're not supposed to know. Somebody asked me, and they said, it's just like the council meetings are next to impossible to view because
they're on secret squirrel Zoom
they're
with
on,
no
well,
access.
not just that, but they record them, and if you try to play them on your computer, if you've updated your computer since 2003, you can't play it because it's on the old Explorer. So you need to find a computer that has the old Explorer in order to read it. It's a joke, and in my opinion, it's done on purpose because then nobody can ever hear what they've done. And somebody said to me, "Well, what do you think you're going to do?" I said, "It's easy. If they don't fix it and I get elected, I'm bringing my own computer and I'm going to live stream it, and I dare somebody to have me arrested and thrown out." It's time we let the people see exactly what was going on.
So it seems to me that the definition of transparency is only as far as you turn the page. It's only what year computer you use. Right. It's only, that's sickening, because if you and I ran our homes that way, our businesses that way.
You couldn't. But it's a wink, wink, nod, nod, and everybody's okay with it.
Because that's the way it's always done.
Well, that I get
I'm
so
sick
fed
of
up.
that one.
Well, it's always done that way. Well, it wasn't right then, and it's not right now.
Hmm.
We had an attorney general who got charged with some things that didn't happen.
Okay.
And so what they did was, it was Peter Heed. And Peter Heed was a great lawyer, and he refused to make decisions that he didn't believe were constitutional or lawful. Even when pressured politically, he would say no. And I know that because I was the majority leader then, and he was friends with the president. And Peter would come in and say, I just can't. And people would say to him, oh, Peter, just let it go. And he'd go, I can't do it. He was that kind of man with great integrity. So when a girl that worked for DHHS got chastised because somebody from the Attorney General's office told her supervisor that she was rude to hotel staff, they made a false accusation about him. And so the certain people took the opportunity to go after him, and I'm going to give you the condensed version. As the state police were investigating the issue, the governor and the commissioner of safety and the assistant attorney general were telling this guy, hey, listen, the information and the evidence against you was mounting. You need to resign, you need to resign, you need to resign for the good of your family, for the good of you personally.
Let me guess. No such evidence.
Well, when certain
Manufactured?
people in the council voted to accept his resignation, they all knew that 3 days before it was basically done, there was no evidence. Everybody who supposedly was a victim said that never happened. No, I didn't feel. Peter had a habit of just being, when he released his energy, you couldn't kayak with the guy because he would kayak against the tide and go as fast as he could, or against the flow. And it'd be like, Peter, what are you, nuts? I mean, look at me. I'm not going with you. So after work, when he was dancing, Peter was Peter. He's just full of energy. But nobody was ever hurt, touched, or...
Yep.
So the whole thing. And I laugh because my opponent was one of the people who voted to accept his resignation. And it's funny, he got the endorsement of the other two because nobody's supposed to know this. I do, and I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm fed up. Let's be transparent.
Yep.
So
And you know what? I don't even think I like that word anymore. I think it needs to be, let's be truthful in every way, shape, or form, because this transparency, accountability, it's lies.
it's
It's
lies.
manufacturing.
And when you're willing to destroy someone's life
Yep.
and career,
So you can just keep your little position.
so you
and
can keep your position, and we can find somebody else who maybe will twist the law just a little bit so it's good
Yep.
for me. We don't want that.
I just
And somebody
haven't-
needs to tell it.
I agree, and that needs to be right from the school boards up, because we're looking
Yes.
at the same thing in the school boards. I went a little crazy this afternoon and went off on teachers' unions. Not teachers, teachers' unions. When did they become judge, jury, and prosecutor for we, the taxpayer?
That's right.
I mean, we have to keep it simple, silly. You can say something else, but I won't. You keep
Yeah.
it simple. We're the taxpayer. They take it in your paycheck. They take it if you're lucky enough to have invested and had an IRA. They take money off of that. And then they take money for your property taxes, which is for the town and for the schools. And we've had no school since March, April, May, part of June, 4 months, 3.5 months. I'll be generous, 3.5 months. Did you get a rebate in your property taxes for the schools? I didn't.
The first thing I should get a rebate for is administration, because they're not doing anything. They're doing absolutely nothing.
So if the state is closed,
Yep.
how are these laws and mandates being passed and discussed? And how are talks about vaccines going forward with no
There
input?
again, I don't know how many people realize, but the Executive Council gave permission for UNH to put together a list of people who get vaccines. I mean, that's as simple as I can put it. We don't want a vaccine registry, and they put one in. I'll give you one better.
Oh, God.
In 16, 17, and 18, the council decided that they would give, I think it ended up being $244,000 so that some folks at UNH and maybe some state people could come up with this new plan on how to make sure our food handlers did everything safely.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of taking that to the legislature, they took it to the rules and just adopted it.
But I thought all laws have to come from the House, from Congress.
It's supposed to. Well, it should come from the House of Representatives of the state Senate in New Hampshire. So what happened was we started getting calls from people saying, I now have to buy a food license for my employee at $300 for the class. If that employee leaves me to go to my competitor down the street,
do I get a refund?
No, and he has to buy a $300 class and send that person back again. So the person doesn't stay licensed. It just keeps rolling over. Now, it was interesting because when we said, well, where did this come from? Now, I'm representing people, not as a legislator, but I know the ropes. So we asked, well, how did this become law? And they said, oh, well, it's a rule. And I said, well, you didn't have any, you can't do that rule because there was no law for you to make a rule about. Oh, well, what if we give your client exemptions? And I said, that doesn't make it right. What about all the other people?
Yeah.
Well, they allowed the Restaurant Association, which I called the union,
right,
to give their own classes. So now if you're a member there and you give them money, I think it was $165, but that's not the point.
No, it's not. The point is not it's cheaper. The point is not that it's underneath another roof.
No,
the point is that you're charging, it's extortion.
And worse than that,
to work.
The Executive Council, and my opponent was part of it, the Executive Council usurped the job and the right of my representative and my senator to create the laws and just said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Nobody will notice. Well, you can see why they don't like me.
Will.
I noticed.
Yeah.
And while everybody else was saying to this guy, look, it's the law, just shut your businesses down if you don't like it, I said, no, that's not how we do things.
But
you
it's
gotta be
not a
kidding
law.
Me. It is, because rules have the force and effect of law. So if they can get that rule in, what you have to do now in the legislature is file a bill to stop the bureaucrat from making that rule.
So that's
the rules
insane.
It is
so what's
insane.
the point of a law?
So now you have the bureaucrat making law, and you have the Executive Council making law, and they're not entitled to make law.
Correct.
They're supposed to watch our dollars.
Yes.
But while they were giving away the stuff, they were creating more expenses.
So New Hampshire has quite the swamp.
We have a swamp, and if we don't fix it, we're not coming out of it. You think that we're not Massachusetts now, but we're not far from it.
I think we have 1 foot over in there.
Well,
we could have a scummy pond right now, and we got our toe dipping into the swamp.
We
and
do.
I think if we do, the swamp's going to overtake us.
Right. And every time they do a source code, I don't care who it's for. You know, we have the managed care organizations. When they first started, they were a few $100 million.
Right.
And I say like it's nothing because now it's $2 billion. And when they started, we used our own people. We let our own people continue to work for them, so it'd be a smooth transition. Mm-hmm. Those people are still there. We're still paying for them. So what we were doing for less money because we were efficient,
right?
And everybody says, "Oh yeah, but they were union." I don't care. They're still union. They're still doing it, and they did it right. But now it's costing us a lot more money, and we're not going out for bids. Oh, it would be too hard. Well, you know what? If your job is too hard, go work someplace else. I got somebody who'll take your place.
Yep.
You know, I'm
I don't
tired of hearing
understand
this.
Too hard to get 2 or 3 bids. I mean, it's like, hey, I want bids for you to do my front yard. 5 people call you up. They send you an email. You lay. I mean, this is not brain surgery, and I'm not the smartest bulb in the box. But you look at 5 contracts and you go, well, he's cheapest, he's expensive. Okay, reshuffle the papers. Well, he's going to do this, 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 and this, but he's not. Okay, let's shuffle him back down here. And you go across what's there and you pick the best.
You're simplifying the managed care, but you're right. It's the same thing. You either, here's what we want. Listen, I was there when they tried to do 2 different types of software, and the software they're using at the HHS now, some of the people I knew that were actually building it said it's never going to work because every time we go in there, they go, oh, we wanted to do this too.
Oh, they keep adding it.
Well, you can't have one software do everything for everybody. It just doesn't work.
No, that kind of like Obamacare.
And I think it came in $3 or $50 million over budget. And it's a piece of
million?
Yeah, and it's but don't worry, we just
Oh, that's okay. I'll go work another 15 hours a week, and you can do another 18.
While we're going to cut the oxygen we're giving to the elderly, We just gave somebody a contract for the next 6 months to put together a plan just in case when the legislature comes through, they decide to put all the people that stay at home in the managed care. Because we passed a bill that said, no, people that are home aren't going to be part of the managed care. They need better. And
Right.
we do it cheaper and better. So I think it's $750,000 because if in January they get the right people in, they're going to say, well, let's just move all those people into managed care. Well, what if we don't? We spent $750,000 for now. We could have bought $750,000
Worth
worth
of oxygen for them for 6 months.
and this is why I want to go in. I'm tired of it. I can't watch it. I mean, I'm getting old, but I can't sit here and do nothing.
That's kind of, that's kind of why a lot of the radio hosts do what they do. We pay for our own shows, and luckily, I have a couple of really good sponsors. So, tell everybody how they can reach out to you, how they can get a sign, how they can support you. This seems very important to me. Some of these, what you've brought up here alone, is so disgusting that we cannot have the status quo anymore. We have got to keep first in the nation, live free or die. So how do people reach out to you?
My website is info@bobclegg4FOR executivecouncil.com.
Okay.
And you can ask for a sign there. There's a couple of different places that we have up there that you can put in your address. We have them delivered. And don't be scared because all the guys that deliver the signs are my age. So we're not lost.
Right.
Sometimes we are. What
else can people do for you?
Feel free to send me letters on what needs to be done because I don't know everything that's going on there, but I
Right.
certainly know enough to know that I have to go up there and at least try.
And I think people have to know that throwing around the words transparency, accountability, because that's the way it's done. My job is too hard. It's too complicated. Doesn't cut the mustard anymore.
I waited till the last minute to try to find a place to put these people, so now we're going to do a 10-year lease with my friend. That's not right.
And not on the taxpayer dollar, not on our backs, because it's really feeling like we're the slaves to whatever the powers that be. I mean, you want to be disgusting. Hurry up and do some more work because we're going to spend your money however we feel.
Right.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming in, Bob. I appreciate this. And we've got the primary on September 8th. So remember to vote, everybody. Check into Bob Clegg and all the people running. Ask for help. Ask for signs. Ask how you can forward democracy and getting the right people into government. See you next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.